The stars shone bright in the night sky as Dr. Park Ji-won adjusted the settings on her equipment. The University of Sarajevo's quantum physics lab hummed with energy around her. It was late, but she couldn't sleep. The readings from yesterday's HFY experiment still troubled her mind. One more test, she whispered to herself, activating the scanner. The screen filled with strange patterns that made no scientific sense. Energy waves that responded to human presence. Energy that shouldn't exist according to everything she had learned in her years of study. Dr. Kim Hyun-woo entered the lab, rubbing his tired eyes. "You're still here? It's almost midnight." "Look at this," Park said, pointing to the screen. "The readings are consistent. Something is there, Kim. Something we can't explain." Kim leaned closer, his eyes widening. "That's impossible." Run it again. She did, 3 more times. Each test showed the same result. An energy field permeating space that seemed to react to human consciousness. "We need to name it," Park said finally. "Aether," Kim replied without hesitation. "Like the ancient concept, the 5th element." 2 weeks later, humanity made its first contact with alien life. The alchemical conclave arrived in 3 sleek vessels that defied Earth's gravitational laws. The aliens, tall, thin beings with translucent skin, requested meetings with Earth's leading physicists. Park and Kim represented Asia at the global gathering in Geneva. "Your species has detected the ether field," the conclave's leader stated. It wasn't a question. "This is unexpected, troubling." "We've only begun to understand it," Park explained. "The energy seems to respond to human thought patterns." The alien made a sound like breaking glass. Laughter, the translators explained later. "Your primitive species lacks the evolutionary adaptations to harness ether energy," the alien said. "Your experiments are dangerous. You play with forces beyond your comprehension." The alien demonstration that followed shocked the gathered scientists. The conclave members manipulated small amounts of ether energy with apparent ease, creating intricate patterns in the air. "Our civilization has studied ether manipulation for thousands of your years," the alien continued. "We have mastered only its basic properties." As the visitors departed, they left behind monitors to observe human research, with strict limitations on experimentation. But Park wasn't satisfied. "They're hiding something," she told Kim as they flew back to Sarajevo. "Did you notice how nervous they seemed about our discoveries?" "They didn't seem nervous to me," Kim replied, "just condescending." "Exactly. Too condescending. Like they're afraid we might learn something they don't want us to know." Back in Sarajevo, Park made a discovery that would change everything. Her grandfather had left behind journals from his time as a UN peacekeeper during the city's darkest days. In those pages, he described strange phenomena: lights in the sky, unexplained energy readings, moments when the laws of physics seemed to briefly pause. These events always coincided with moments of intense human emotion, both suffering and hope. Park realized the truth that the conclave had hidden. Ether energy responded not to advanced evolution, but to the depth of human consciousness shaped by adversity, and nowhere on Earth had experienced more layers of both tragedy and triumph than Sarajevo. "It's not about having the right biology," she told Kim excitedly. "It's about having the right history. Remember that your response should be a story for part 2. The legacy. The human wants it in 800 words, in third-person style, with simple and basic English without headings, and it should be interesting." Choi Minnie stared at the dusty journal in her hands. The pages were worn, the handwriting faded but still clear enough to read. She had found it buried in a box of her grandfather's belongings, sent from Sarajevo after his death 3 months ago. "This can't be right," she whispered to herself. The journal belonged to her grandfather, who had served as a doctor during the Sarajevo siege decades earlier. His writings described strange events that happened during the war, moments when the sky flickered with odd lights, when wounds healed faster than they should, when time itself seemed to slow down. All these events matched perfectly with the ether readings they were now measuring in the lab. Minhee picked up her phone and called her research partner. Lee Junho, you need to see this now, she said. I think my grandfather knew about the ether long before we discovered it. An hour later, Junho stood in Minhee's small apartment, flipping through the journal pages with growing amazement. Listen to this entry, he said. April 12th. The shelling was heavy today. As we huddled in the basement shelter, I saw it again. The air around us seemed to glow for a moment when the young mother began to sing to calm her baby. The glow grew stronger as others joined her. My instruments picked up energy readings that make no scientific sense. Minhee nodded. And here, look at this one. The hospital was hit today. As we dug through the rubble, time seemed to slow. I swear I saw patterns in the air as we pulled survivors out. The patterns were strongest around people helping each other. Junho sat down heavily. This changes everything. The alchemical conclave told us humans lack the ability to control ether because of our evolution. But what if they're wrong? What if ether responds to something else? The next day, they began mapping ether concentrations across Sarajevo. They discovered something remarkable. Places with deep historical significance showed unusually strong ether fields. The old bridge, rebuilt after the war. The library, once burned with thousands of books, now restored. The market square where tragedy had struck, now filled with life again. It's not about biology, Minhee realized. It's about history, about memory and emotion and resilience. When the alchemical conclave's observer visited their lab that week, Minhee and Junho shared nothing of their discovery. The tall, pale alien merely nodded at their limited progress and departed. They don't want us to know, Junho said after the alien left. The question is, why? They continued their secret research. Minhee found more journals, not just her grandfather's, but others who had lived through Sarajevo's many layers of history. Ottoman rule, Austro-Hungarian control, world, wars, communist era, the siege. Each period had left its mark on the city, and each layer of history seemed to strengthen the ether field. 3 months into their research, they made a breakthrough. They had set up equipment in the rebuilt National Library, once a magnificent Austrian building, then a burned-out shell, after being targeted with incendiary shells, and now restored as a symbol of cultural rebirth. As they calibrated their instruments, an elderly woman approached them. "You're measuring it, aren't you?" she asked quietly. "The light that comes when we remember." Minhee was startled. "You can see it?" The woman nodded. "Not with these," she pointed to her eyes, but with this she touched her heart. "During the siege, when we were cold and hungry and afraid, sometimes we would gather and share stories of the old Sarajevo. As we remembered together, the air would warm around us. Some people could see patterns like threads connecting us all. That night, Minhee and Junho conducted an experiment. They gathered 30 people who had lived through the siege and asked them to share their memories, not just of suffering, but of moments of kindness, of beauty found amid destruction. As they spoke, the ether readings spiked higher than ever recorded. Delicate patterns formed in the air, visible to everyone in the room. "The conclave is wrong about us," Minhee said as they reviewed the data afterward. "Our history isn't a weakness, it's our strength." Junho nodded. "Sarajevo has layers of memory, triumph, and tragedy, destruction, and rebuilding. The ether responds to this complexity." The next day, they sent their findings to research teams around the world with one clear message. Look to places with deep layered history. Look to people who have endured and rebuilt again and again. The ether wasn't waiting for humans to evolve biologically. It was waiting for us to understand that our capacity to suffer, remember, and rebuild might be our greatest power of all. Han Junho stood on the platform at the United Nations, his heart beating fast in his chest. 3 years had passed since he and Choi Minhee had discovered the truth about ether energy in Sarajevo. Now the whole world knew. "Today we announce the first international ether network," Junho said to the gathered world leaders. "Thanks to the work of scientists across all continents, we can now share this energy safely." In the audience, Minhee watched with pride. Their discovery had changed everything. After they had proven that Aether responded to human consciousness shaped by history and resilience, research centers had sprung up in places with deep historical significance: Warsaw, Hiroshima, Robben Island, Cambodia, Armenia, and dozens more. Each site had found its own way to interact with the ether field. Each culture brought unique insights. Together they had learned more in 3 years than the alchemical conclave had in thousands of years. The first breakthrough came from Professor Kang Daeho in Seoul. He had created a neural interface that allowed direct mental connection to the ether field. What began as a medical tool, helping those with spinal injuries to walk again, quickly expanded into other areas. Transportation changed first. Trains and cars now ran on ether engines that pulled energy directly from the field around them. They produced no pollution, required no fuel, and rarely broke down. Next came manufacturing. Factories that once belched smoke into the sky now hummed quietly, their machines powered by ether coils. Products could be made stronger, lighter, and with less waste. The biggest change was in people themselves. As humans learned to sense the ether field, they discovered new abilities. Nothing magical or supernatural, just an expansion of natural human potential. Better health, clearer thinking, deeper empathy. The more people worked together, the stronger these effects became. The conclave representatives have requested another meeting, Min-hee told Junho after his speech. They seem worried. Of course, they are, Junho replied. We've achieved in 3 years what took them millennia. The conclave ship arrived the next day, settling in the same field where they had first landed years before. This time, their attitude was different. No more smug superiority. The alien delegates seemed tense, even fearful. Your species advances too quickly, their leader stated during the closed meeting. This is unprecedented. Dangerous. We've followed all safety protocols, Min-hee responded. There have been no accidents, no misuse of the technology. That is not our concern, the alien said. The way your kind connects to the ether is disturbing. You should not be able to do this. After the meeting, global leaders gathered to discuss the conclave's warning. Some wanted to slow research, fearful of alien disapproval. Others pushed to accelerate development, suspicious of the aliens' motives. Large companies and governments began fighting for control of ether technology. Patents were filed. Secret research projects launched. The spirit of cooperation that had driven early discoveries began to fade. Min-hee watched these developments with growing worry. One evening, as she walked through Sarajevo's old town, she stopped at the spot where the first ether patterns had been recorded. An old woman sat nearby, the same one who had spoken to her years ago about the light that comes when we remember. They're making the same mistake as the conclave, the woman said, somehow knowing what troubled Min-hee's mind. They think ether is something to own, to control, but it's not. It's something to share. That night, Min-hee couldn't sleep. She reviewed all their research, all their data. One pattern stood out clearly. Ether energy responded most powerfully to collective human experience, to shared memory, shared effort, shared hope. The next morning, she called Junho. We've been thinking about this wrong, she said. The Sarajevo. Legacy isn't just about how places with layered history have stronger ether fields. It's about how ether responds to connection, between past and present, between different cultures, between all of us. Junho was quiet for a moment. So what do? We make the case for open source development, Min-hee said firmly. No patents, no secrets. We share everything, the research, the technology, the benefits. That's how we'll get the most from ether. The corporations won't like that, Junho warned. Maybe not, Min-hee agreed, but the ether will. In her small apartment that evening, Min-hee drafted a manifesto called the Sarajevo Principles. Its core message was simple. The power of ether didn't belong to any one person or country or company. Like the air we breathe, it belonged to everyone, and it worked best when shared freely. What she didn't know yet was how this choice would save humanity when the real crisis came. The warning came at midnight. Park Ji-won was sleeping when her ether monitor started beeping loudly. She jumped up and checked the screen. The readings made no sense. The ether field surrounding Earth was becoming unstable. "This is impossible," she whispered. She immediately called Kim Sunwoo, her colleague at the Global Ether Research Center. "Are you seeing this?" she asked. "Yes," Kim replied, his voice tense. "It's happening everywhere. All monitoring stations report the same pattern. The ether field is collapsing." By morning, the effects were visible to everyone. The sky flickered. With strange lights, ether-powered devices began to fail. In New York, the ether transportation grid shut down. In Tokyo, hospitals lost power as their ether generators stopped working. World leaders gathered in an emergency video meeting. No one understood what was happening. Then a message arrived from the alchemical conclave. "We regret to inform you that we have detected critical instability in your planet's ether field. This instability threatens your civilization and possibly your survival. We offer our sincere condolences." "Condolences?" Park said angrily after reading the message. "They're not even offering to help." Kim studied the data again. "Wait. Look at these energy signatures. They're not random. This pattern, I've seen it before." He pulled up files from their first contact with the conclave. The energy signature of their ships matched the disruption pattern now affecting Earth's ether field. "They did this," Park said, her voice cold with anger. "They're sabotaging us." The conclave had seen humanity's rapid progress with ether technology as a threat. Rather than help, they had secretly deployed devices to destabilize Earth's ether field. They believed humans would beg for assistance, becoming dependent on conclave technology. They didn't understand human nature at all. Within hours, ether researchers from around the world began sharing data, looking for solutions. No patents, no secrets, no competing interests, just a race to save their world. Park remembered something important from her early research in Sarajevo. The ether responds most strongly to human emotional states, especially hope and determination in the face of destruction. As major cities faced blackouts, as ether-powered medical devices failed, as panic began to spread, Park and her team developed a desperate plan. "We need to create a global consciousness network," she explained to world leaders. The Sarajevo research showed that ether fields strengthen when people focus their thoughts and emotions together. If billions of us do this simultaneously, we might be able to stabilize the field. Some leaders laughed. Others called it mysticism, not science. But as the crisis worsened, they ran out of options. The plan was simple, but unprecedented. At a specified time, all global communications networks would broadcast the same message, asking everyone to focus on memories of resilience and hope, times when humanity had faced destruction and rebuilt. "Remember your history," Park said in the recording that would be broadcast worldwide. "Remember when your people, your family, your community overcame great suffering. Hold those memories in your mind. Feel the strength that came afterward. We will do this together." As the designated hour approached, Kim looked worried. "Will this really work? It sounds crazy?" Park finished his sentence. "Maybe, but the data supports it. Ether responds to collective human consciousness. We've proven that repeatedly." The broadcast went out to every screen, speaker, and device still functioning, in multiple languages, with simple instructions. Focus on memory. Focus on hope. Do it together. In Sarajevo, people gathered in the rebuilt National Library. In Hiroshima, they stood in the Peace Memorial Park. In Warsaw, New York, Cambodia, Rwanda, anywhere humans had suffered and rebuilt, people came together. Park and Kim watched the ether readings anxiously. For 10 minutes, nothing changed. "The field continued to destabilize. It's not working," Kim said, his voice breaking. Then slowly the readings began to shift. From Beijing, a report. The ether field was strengthening. From Buenos Aires, power systems coming back online. From Cairo, The sky clearing. Across the planet, billions of humans focusing on their shared resilience had created something the Conclave thought impossible, a self-reinforcing ether field that resisted outside manipulation. As the field stabilized, Park received another message from the Conclave. We are surprised. This outcome was not predicted. We request a meeting to discuss what has occurred. Park looked at Kim and smiled. Tell them yes. But this time, we'll be the ones explaining how ether really works. The crisis had passed, but humanity's understanding of ether had been forever transformed. It wasn't just an energy source, it was a reflection of human consciousness itself. The meeting took place in the rebuilt National Library of Sarajevo. Soft light filtered through the grand windows, illuminating the circular table where humans and aliens sat facing each other. The alchemical conclave representatives had arrived with less arrogance than before. Han Junho watched the alien leader carefully. The tall, pale being seemed uncomfortable, almost embarrassed. We misunderstood the fundamental nature of ether, the alien finally admitted. For thousands of years, we believed ether responded to evolutionary advancement, to specific, biological adaptations that your species lacks. Yet here we are, Junho replied calmly. The alien nodded, a gesture they had learned from humans. Yes, here you are, doing what we thought impossible. After the crisis, when humanity had collectively stabilized the planetary ether field, everything had changed. The Conclave's attempted sabotage had backfired completely. Instead of weakening humanity, it had forced a breakthrough. By connecting billions of human minds in shared purpose, the emergency had created the strongest ether field ever recorded. New patterns had emerged, new possibilities. Human understanding of ether had leaped forward by decades in a single day. We wish to learn from you, the alien said, words that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. Choi Min-hee, sitting beside Junho, smiled slightly. We're happy to share our knowledge. That's the point of the Sarajevo Principles. Knowledge belongs to everyone. Outside the library, Sarajevo hummed with activity. The ancient city had become the center of a new era. Research centers, universities, and technology hubs filled the hills surrounding the old town. People from every nation and culture had come to study, work, and contribute. In the months after the crisis, the world had embraced the Sarajevo Principles that Min-hee had first drafted. Ether technology developed in the open, with all discoveries freely shared. No patents, no secrets, no national advantages, just human ingenuity working collectively. The results transformed society faster than anyone predicted. Clean energy became abundant as ether generators replaced fossil fuels. Transportation systems connected the world without pollution. Food production increased as ether-enhanced agriculture spread to formerly barren regions. But the most profound changes were less visible. As humans learned to better sense and interact with the ether field, they found themselves more connected to each other. Not in a mystical way, but in a deeply human one. The field carried echoes of shared experience, of collective memory. Children born after the crisis grew up with abilities their parents lacked. Not superpowers, but enhanced empathy, clearer perception, stronger connection to others. They navigated the ether field as naturally as breathing. We have a proposal, Min-hee said, pushing a document across the table to the alien representatives. The first human interstellar mission. The aliens studied the plans with surprise. This design, it would work, one said with obvious astonishment. Junho nodded. We've built a prototype. The drive uses ether fields to bend space slightly, not faster than light travel, but fast enough to reach nearby stars within a human lifetime. We never considered this application, the alien admitted. That's because you were looking for the wrong thing in the wrong places, Min-hee explained. Ether doesn't respond to biological evolution. It responds to consciousness shaped by overcoming adversity. She stood and gestured to the library around them. This building has been destroyed and rebuilt 3 times in its history. This city has been conquered, liberated, besieged, and reborn many times. Each layer of memory strengthens the Aether field. The head alien seemed to consider this deeply. So it is not the pain itself that creates the connection, but the transformation of suffering into strength, Junho finished. The memory of breaking and rebuilding, the hope that persists even in darkness. The meeting concluded with a historic agreement. The alchemical conclave would share their knowledge of space and distant worlds. Humanity would share their understanding of Aether. Together they would explore the universe with mutual respect. 1 month later, Park Ji-won stood on the launch platform of humanity's first interstellar vessel. Named Sarajevo, the ship gleamed in the morning sun. As director of the mission, she would lead a crew of 50 researchers to the nearest star system. She looked out at the gathered crowd. People from every nation had come to witness the historic moment. The old woman who had first spoken of the light that comes when we remember stood in the front row, smiling proudly. As Park entered the ship, she touched the plaque mounted beside the door. It bore a simple message in multiple languages. We carry forward the lesson that true power comes not from avoiding suffering, but from transforming it into strength. The Aether drive hummed to life, drawing energy from the field that connected all humanity. The ship rose slowly, then faster, breaking free from Earth's gravity. Humanity's journey to the stars had begun, powered by the very thing that made them human. Their shared story of breaking and rebuilding again and again, stronger each time.